You know, we begin ordinary time, or we have begun ordinary time for about a week or so. And ordinary time, it's an unfortunate name for this liturgical season. Because when we think ordinary, at least for me, I always think mundane, monotonous, the same old, same old. There's nothing exciting happening. Already in my head, I'm planning out Lent and trying to figure out if I have enough ashes, which I do. I checked this morning. I have enough ashes for Ash Wednesday. All those sorts of things. My head has already jumped way past Christmas. I'm already planning Holy Week. And because it's ordinary times, there's really nothing to do, right? It's just ordinary, just plain. But actually the word ordinary, it does not mean what we think it means. It means to order or to number. These are simply the weeks that we count God's presence in our lives without special event. And it's kind of, in that way, I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. That we count these 34 Sundays of ordinary time where nothing special is happening, and yet God is invested in me. God cares about me. God is present to me. God is active in my life. God is speaking. God is leading. God is still with me. The promise of Christmas continues to be fulfilled. But even these readings, come on. These readings are boring. Nothing happened in these readings today. All Isaiah did was tell us who he was. Paul didn't even do that much. Paul just signed a letter. Right? If you caught it, if you paid close enough attention to the second reading, Paul's letter to the Corinthians, all this is his signature. That's all we heard today was his signature. No message, no instruction, no chastisement, no story, just I, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to you, my brothers in Corinth, and my friend, my brother, Sosthenes. That's it. The word of the Lord. Even the gospel. My goodness, it's just what we heard last week, isn't it? Or at least the continuation of it a little bit, it's a summary of it. We get it. Last week we had the baptism of the Lord and we heard about John baptizing Jesus. Now we hear John talking about baptizing Jesus. It's so mundane. There was I think he's still alive, Monsignor John Esseff. He's a priest of Scranton, Pennsylvania. When I was in college seminary, he led one of our retreats, and he was a crazy-looking man. He was the exorcist for the Diocese of Scranton, and he teaches other priests how to do exorcism, but he's also just a really good spiritual director, and so he was directing one of our college retreats. And this man looks like what you would think of in an exorcist in like a movie in the 50s, right? He looks like he's been to hell and back. He's blind in his left eye, and his right eye is his good eye, but it's a lazy eye, so it just is constantly just kind of moving every which direction. And he's old and crippled. He was 150 years old when I was in college, so he was sitting in a chair in front of the altar to direct the retreat because he couldn't stand long enough to preach. And he's sitting in this chair this one morning in snowy South Dakota where the retreat center was in January. And it's freezing because the heater wasn't working in the chapel, and he's sitting there with his eye darting across the chapel. And it was just a thing that was surreal. And he looks at us out of that crazy eye and he says, I prayed this morning. And then there was some silence. We all just looked at him. I prayed this morning. Okay. Men, did you hear me? I prayed this morning. He was getting angry with it. I prayed this morning. I said, God, I don't want to get out of bed. And God said, John, get your butt out of bed. God cares about you. That was the theme for the entire hour-long talk. That God cared enough to answer his prayer, well then just get out of bed. The theme of that retreat was to become an active contemplative. Right? We always hear that debate between like, oh, I'm more of a Mary, I'm more of a Martha. Some of us like to be active and make sure everything's perfect, and others of us just want to hang out and participate and just kind of listen and lounge around. Or we think of the active life, like the Dominican sisters who are always running around and teaching, and they're frantic and they have to, make sure everything's perfect. Or then you think of like the Carthusians or whoever, the Trappists, the ones that just sit in the monastery all day. They don't do anything. They just sit and they pray, and they're the contemplative life of the church. And then we have us lay people and us diocesan priests who kind of are neither and both. We're supposed to live in that tension. So the theme of this retreat was how to be an active contemplative. And I think that prayer is such a great example. God, I just don't want to get out of bed this morning. Well, John, get your butt out of bed. I think that's a beautiful example of how God is actively involved in my life and in yours. That everything that we do with the faith, everything that we do, God initiates. I initiate nothing in faith. God initiates everything. Or as my spiritual director in college, Father Paul Gitter, would always say, all you have to do is 10% of the work. And God will do the other 90. Nicholas, all you have to do is show up and sit still for an hour every day. God will do the rest of your prayer. If you do 10, God will match it 90. Just show up. Because God, as Father Patty Maher would say, is madly in love with you. Just show up. Because God has so much goodness to give to you. So much grace to pour out into you. But you have to show up to get it. And yes, this time of ordinary time can seem mundane, it can seem boring. In fact, I don't know if it was the threat of a blizzard, whatever, or if it's just that Christmas is over. But if you look around, the attendance is kind of low. I expected it. It's after Christmas, and I saw 2 flurries out of my window this morning. So yeah, I get it. It's Alabama, there's a single snowflake, and we all get panicked. I get it, I expected a low number, but to point it out, it's easier to practice the faith when there's excitement to it. It's easier to practice the faith when there's giant Christmas trees, and not just the remaining wreaths that we forgot to take down this week. I get it. It's easier when we walk in on Ash Wednesday, we put on our sackcloth and we cover ourselves with ashes. Oh, woe is me, I'm a terrible sinner, I need God. It's easier to do that than to just show up and hear, I, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to you, my brothers in Corinth. What am I to do with that? I was thinking about it this morning. My parents are coming over for lunch today, which is stressful. I haven't been to the grocery store in 3 weeks. I have no food, so we'll figure that one out. But they're coming over for lunch today, and even without having food in the rectory, it's almost a relief that it's not Christmas. Because there's no pressure that it has to be this perfect thing. I don't have to make sure that the rib roast has the perfect crunch on it and that everything is perfectly presented and my mom isn't going to be upset because I'm not using the fine china. I don't have to worry about all of that minutia detail. We can just be together normally without the threat of Christmas. Maybe that's why ordinary time is so important. Because this is the time where I can just simply sit with God. Without the pressure of making sure I'm preparing for something perfectly. Without the pressure to make sure that I'm following all the added-ons to Mass to a T. Without the pressure of preaching the perfect homily because there's 300 people who aren't going to be here again until Easter. Trying to get them to stay. Perhaps it's just easier to pray because I don't have all the busyness of life right now. Perhaps this is the most important time to pray because God is here in the minutia. He's here in the daily life. He cares about when I wake up. He cares about what I eat. He cares about where I go. Because He cares about me. I've asked the question before, why are you here? Why are you here? I've asked it in different contexts. But if I ask the question, I still get the same answers. I'm here because that's what we do, or as my mom would say, that's just what we do. You're going to do it. Or as my dad would say, because we have to. Or as I would say, because if I don't, somebody's going to come over to the rectory and drag me over here. What are you here for? I'm not passing anything out. The holy water was 2 weeks ago. The chalk was 2 weeks ago. The ashes are 4 weeks away. Not even 4 weeks. What are you here for? Well, then we have the response of people say, well, I bounce around, sometimes I get more out of Father so-and-so's homily, or I like Father so-and-so's jokes, or I prefer the music at this church. And I just kind of bounce around to where I'm going to get what I need, or where I feel like I'm receiving. I get it, on one hand. But on the other, no one is here to get anything. We're here to worship God. To worship Him is to give Him my life. It's to sacrifice and it's to lay down my whole being for Him. God in His goodness gives me the most holy Eucharist as I leave. God in His goodness gives me the proclamation of His scriptures. God in His goodness, and please God, make me a good homilist, gives us a homily to chew on later. But I'm not here for any of those things. I'm here to sacrifice myself in the sacrifice of worship. The parish can never be reduced to a commodity or the source of a commodity. This isn't a service. The Mass is not a service. It's not something that I get. It's not something that's done to me or for me. It's a liturgy, which means it's a work. It's the work of God done by God's people. It's us giving ourselves into this. This ordinary time is meant to be the time that we give ourselves, we learn to give ourselves when there is nothing flashy about it. This is what it means to be a Christian. This is where Christian character is built and fortified and etched. When we're formed, when we're malleable. Prayer is at the heart of it all. There was a study several years ago that said of all the people who claim to be Catholic in the USA, about 25 to 30% go to Mass every Sunday. And of those who go to Mass every Sunday, about 12% do all the work of the parish. And only 8% give all the money of the parish. Which means our parishes are reduced to commodities. What do you have to give me? But our parishes are not commodities. My family is not a commodity. I don't look at my parents and say, what do you have to give me? I look at my family and I say, how can I better love them? How can I better serve them? How can I be a better son and brother to them? And the same must be true with parish life. Not to look at the parish and say, what can you give me, St. Pius? But to look at the parish and say, how can I serve my brothers and my sisters here in this community? How can I better pray and listen to God's divine will? In fact, I think there's a grave disservice that we've begun to do when we ask our children and our grandchildren, or we tell them, you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up. And it comes from a good place, and it's a beautiful thing on the surface to say. But how much better would it be to look at children and say, what is it you think God made you to be? For what purpose do you think God put you on this earth? Because God put each of us on this earth in this place and at this time with these people near us. Not by happenstance or coincidence, but to serve Him. And it's in this time that is ordinary that we train ourselves to hear His voice, to discern what it is that He is asking of us to do. It's in prayer that we hear His voice and we know who He is. It's Father Gitter saying you have to just show up for an hour a day. That's your 10%. Just be there, just sit there and be quiet. Let God do the 90. Let God speak. It's John Esseff saying, pray all throughout the day. Even if the prayer is simply, God, I don't feel like getting out of bed. And then when you hear him say, John, get your butt out of bed, you get your butt out of bed, though I don't want to. It's praying throughout the day of saying, God, what is it you would have me to do today? Should I go serve the poor or lonely person in the parish? Do I need to go and babysit? Do I need to go and do this? Do I need to do that? God is intricately involved in your life. All we have to do is listen and to discern his will. We were not created for ourselves. We were created to be a part of the kingdom of God. We were created to serve him. Use this time of ordinary time well, especially these last few weeks leading up to Ash Wednesday, to hunker down into your faith, to solidify what was begun in the extraordinary times, so that what is done in the ordinary is reflexive of what we've already accomplished, can grow on it, and can build on it. God is madly in love with you. What will you do with that reality?